Howdy, guys, and welcome to night 75 of Big Brother Season 23's Overnight Feeds Recap. And welcome to Cliff Notes from outside the Big Brother house. Hope y'all had a fantastic weekend. We've got veto ceremony, we think, taking place today as per normal schedule. But just as a rehash before we talk about the live feeds, Xavier is HOH. He also won the veto, which means he gets to decide who actually makes a decision on who stays and who goes to the jury house this week, who the final three are. The expectation is that Xavier will keep the nominations the same, which means Kyland and Azah on the block, Big D making the decision, with Big D sending Kyland out the door. So we've got a final three of Xavier, Big D, and Azah. Who would have thunk it? Now, there was some conversation that suggests that could change. So we will talk about that. But right now, the plan is still for Big D to vote Kyland out of the house, and we'll have our final three. All right, let's talk about live feeds. First of all, live feeds, almost a complete rehash of what we heard the night before. A lot of little two-on-two conversations, arguments, a lot of the same stuff. A lot of times I was kind of wishing I was here instead of watching the live feeds, but hey, it is what it is. But let's talk about the live feeds. There was one conversation I do want to hit on that was kind of important. First of all, let's talk a little bit about Big D. The theme of the night. Big D is just feeling horrible that he's going to have to potentially be the one that decides between Kyland and Azah. And so he just going on and on and on about it. It gets worse because, as we mentioned just a little bit yesterday, Xavier has now confirmed to Big D that, no, you're not going into the dining room to cast this vote, Big D. You're going to have to do it in the living room right in front of Kyland and Azah. You're going to have to tell them who's going to the jury house and who's staying. There's no hiding off in the jury to do your e-votes. You got to do it right here. Doesn't make Big D real comfortable to know that, but he is practicing his eviction speech. He's talking about how hard it is. He's having to choose between his best friend, Kyland, and his showmance, Azah, that he's made deals with both of them, and that's why that makes the decision so difficult. Didn't I hear once upon a time during my season that you never keep the showmances at the end? And yet we're all pretty much thinking that Kyland that Big D and Azah sticking around is probably the better move for Xavier, right? Yeah, obviously it is. So Big D is making his little practice there. Big D and Xavier are both, they're trying to feel better about booting Kyland by having a lot of talk about, hey, Kyland has said before that he'd be perfectly happy not winning this season so that he can come back as an all-star season and win it all then. So, it's Kyland will be back. He'll be back to play all-star, so we shouldn't feel too bad if he gets the boot right now. So there's a lot of talk about that. There's a lot of talk about an all-star season. Big D said, that'll be probably season 30, and Xavier saying he'll be too old to play Big Brother then. Yeah, take it from me, Xavier. You're never too old to play Big Brother. But they're talking about that. They're talking about who in their cast would potentially come back for an all-star season, who they would want to play with if they were playing in an all-star season. A lot of just general game conversation revolving around a future season of Big Brother. We've also got Big D. A lot of people talking to the camera tonight. Kind of happens when you only have four folks and they're all spread off in different rooms, but we've got Big D talking to the cameras. He's talking all about the booted house guest from previous throughout the season, folks that are either pre-jury or over in the jury house. He's mainly complimentary of them. He's talking about people like Christian, saying, he'd love to hang with Christian on down the road. Brittany, he looks at as a little sister. And so he's, for the most part, complimentary to everyone, including Tiffany. He even says he's got a lot of respect for her and all that. He hates they got sideways with each other. So Big D just doing a bit of a rehash of everyone else he's been playing the game with. Meanwhile, we've got Xavier in the HOH room. He's complaining that people in this house are just having the same discussions over and over and over again. Yeah, tell me about it, Xavier. We're the ones watching, and we get all of it, not just your conversation. We get all of them. So yes, Xavier's right. It's the same stuff just being talked about over and over again. And that's all about Big D voting out Kyland. Can he do it? Will he do it? Should he do it? Over and over and over again. Xavier does have a realization, and he's talking to the cameras. He's saying, look, I figured out as long as Kyland's in this house, he's going to be getting in Big D's head. It's just going to continue. It's going to get worse and worse as long as he's in there. He finishes, he didn't finish off. He talks some more, but he says, I'm amazed that I ever even thought about keeping Kyland at this point in the game. He's got to go. There's no way I can keep him at this point. Xavier continues. He's telling the cameras that he's a little concerned. He's starting to not trust that Big D's going to do what must be done, which is vote Kyland out of the house. That he's really just not as certain. Big D is he's waffling too much. He's talking about too much. And Xavier is no longer convinced he's going to do what he needs to do. He's considering, now this is probably the most important conversation of the entire evening, I think. And it's Xavier to the cameras. He's saying, look, I don't know that I can trust Big D at this point. Maybe I need to take Azah off the block and let her boot Kyland over to the jury house. I don't think that's a bad idea. If you do that, you're pretty much guaranteed that you're getting Kyland out the door. Azah is not going to vote Big D out of the house. I just don't see that. She'll vote Kyland out with a lot more certainty than Big D's showing. And here's the other thing. Once this veto ceremony is over today and Kyland knows who holds the power of his game in their hands, he's going to be putting on the full court press at that point in time. They think it's bad right now. Kyland's spending so much time kind of going after Big D. Wait until the veto ceremony is over and he knows that Big D's casting that vote. He is going to be going after Big D 24 hours a day. If they're worried about Big D right now, it's only going to get worse. So with that in mind, I don't think it's a bad idea from Xavier's standpoint, maybe to go ahead and make the flip. Now, the alternate side or the con to that, I suppose, is Xavier really is interested in making sure that Big D gets some blood on his hands, destroy some relationships, because that's who he wants to take to a final two, right? He doesn't want to take Azah. He wants to take Big D. So he would rather see Big D get some people upset with him. My personal feeling is that Big D making a move like that, it's going to enhance his resume more from a voter standpoint than any bad blood he gets on his hands by sending Kyland out of the house. So I actually think it works to Big D's detriment to not have the ability to cast that vote, to not have any big decisions that he can absolutely hang his hat on. But that's Xavier's concern. And so he is thinking about maybe making the flip today, letting Azah make the decision instead of Big D. We'll find out by this time tomorrow. We should know. I think we'll know. So we'll see what happens with that. We've got Xavier and Azah talking. She's going on as well. She's saying, look, Big D just keeps complaining about having to vote Kyland out the door. And Kyland keeps telling him that Big D is a bad person if he doesn't keep him in the house. I hate hearing that. But she's saying the same thing. She said, man, it's as though Big D forgets that I'm on the block next to Kyland as much as he talks about what a tough decision this is, how hard it's going to be. So she's getting a little perturbed about it as well. And she's saying, look, it's to the point. Kyland and Big D are fighting all the time over this issue. First time I've kind of heard it categorized as fighting, but they're really starting to get on each other's nerves with this whole discussion. Obviously, Azah does not want to be on the block. So if she can convince Xavier to let her make the decision, she would be happy to do that. So she is certainly pushing that narrative some. Now we go to the Kyland talking to the cameras. I think he's up in the have-not room at this point in time. Talking to the cameras, he's saying that some people just play this game without respect. We gotta have a discussion about what is respecting the game and not respecting the game. I'd have a few comments to say on that. But he's saying some people just aren't playing the game with respect. He's talking about how Xavier would have messed up the Cookout Alliance by keeping Christian longer if he had control, if he'd had more of a say in the matter. He's also talking about how Kyland, saved the Cookout Alliance by getting Sarah Beth to not put up Big D and Azah during her HOH. I think she went after Derek X instead, didn't she? So he's saying he saved the Cookout Alliance by doing a last minute convincing of Sarah Beth to change who she was going to put up. He's saying the evictions went in exactly the order that he wanted, that maybe he would have had Alyssa go before Claire, but beyond that, it went exactly the way he had all worked out and planned up. And he's wondering if there maybe are some Big Brother game analysts out here in the real world that may tell him, make some comments and talk to him about his game after he gets out. Yeah, get ready. You're going to have a whole lot of people telling you everything that you did wrong, Kyland, when you get out of here. It's just the nature of the Big Brother world. You'll have plenty of people giving you all kinds of opinions, and just wait. All right, we've got Kyle. This is kind of, why I want to be here instead of watching the live feeds, because I get to watch multiple minutes of Kyland cutting his toenails, Azah doing her hair, Big D putting away clothes at 2 a.m. Just what I wanted to see. All right, we've got Kyland talking to the cameras some more. A lot of that going on. Talking to the cameras. All right, this is a serious one. He's talking to the cameras. He's saying that he cannot imagine Xavier raising his nephew to be a coward. Really? Says he wouldn't want that his nephew wouldn't want to see Xavier taking the easy way out by cutting Kyland. All right. I take huge issue with this. Being a family guy, being someone who very much was thinking about family while I was in there, I take issue with this. Say whatever you want in the house. Lie, backstab, promise, criticize, judge, do whatever you want inside the house in order to save yourself, and it's all okay. It's all fair game, I believe. But when you start addressing or referencing family members and being so judgmental and wrong as you talk about these family members and the character of the players in the house, that rubs me a little the wrong way. I wasn't really liking when I heard Kyland talk about this. Again, say whatever you want to the people inside the house, but don't be going off and talking to family members about how you think someone's letting someone down by the way they're playing the game. I don't buy it. I'm not into that. All right. And finally, just a final statement on that. With regards to Big Brother play and how the game's played, Kyland does not have any moral high ground over anyone else in that house right now. No one has done anything unethical. It's all part of the game of Big Brother. All right, off my soapbox. Kyland is trying to figure out new pitches that he could use to save himself this week that the others wouldn't consider to be offensive. Well, yeah, good. I'm glad there's a little introspection there. He's using the chessboard to work out jury vote scenarios. He's figuring, and all of this is based on he and Xavier being on the final 2 chairs together. He's figuring worst case, he loses 4-5 to Xavier, and that's if Xavier wins the final competition and drags Kyland to the final 2. He's figuring in that case, he probably loses 4-5. Best case, if he wins, if he drags Xavier to the end, he figures he could win 6-3. I don't know. Maybe I haven't really gone through and tried to figure out exactly who he thinks has each other's vote, because I don't think it's happening. I don't think you're seeing the final 2, Kyland. It's not going to happen this year. All right, we got Big D complaining to Xavier and Azah that Kyland apparently suggested that Big D was a racist because Big D's made some jokes about other Black people in the house. I did not see the original conversation, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with it. I just know that Big D's upset about some statements that Kyland had made to him. Xavier is saying, look, Kyland knows people's soft spots. He knows how to get to you, Big D. That's what's going on. Apparently, Kyland also maybe made some references to Azah about who she dates, sleeps with. I'm not going to go into details on that either, but they're just the 3 of them are a little perturbed, a little irritated with a few of the comments that Kyland's been making. And again, give this to Kyland. Yeah, we may not always like some of the tactics, but he's doing whatever he can to try to survive in the house. And we'll see if it works. I don't think it will, but we'll see. Go out fighting. Why not? It's you're $750,000. You do what it takes. All right. Lights are out just a little before 2:00 in the morning. Everyone's finally getting in bed, except for Big D. Big D's in the diary room. Big D's in the diary room till, I don't know, 3:30 or so in the morning. He gets done. He goes into the yacht room. He wakes up Azah, not he personally, but he asks Big Brother to turn the lights on in the yacht room so he can finish putting up his clothes. And that wakes up Azah, and he tells her, says, yeah, it's 3:30 in the morning. I'd kill him. I would absolutely kill him. We begged and pleaded while we were in that house. Please, Big Brother, can you turn these lights off so I can go to sleep? Once they were off, everyone was so happy. If someone came in and asked for the lights to be turned back on at 3:30 in the morning, I would be a little irritated with that person. But Big D had to get those clothes put up, and so the lights come on for a second while he does that. Now, just a little comment with Big D in the diary room so late at night. not at all uncommon inside the Big Brother house. People during my season would get called in throughout the entire evening. Sometimes you'd be sound asleep and they would wake you up and say, hey, can you come in? We just got to get a little bit more for, an upcoming episode and all that. Do you know how hard it is to get into that diary room at 3:00 in the morning and be high energy and vocal and just even coherent? Not easy at all. And then the women in the house, it's even tougher because they want to put on makeup and everything in the middle of the night. So yeah, very, very hard sometimes, those middle of the night calls, but they got a TV show to put together. Now I had a little bit easier because I was usually the first person to wake up in the morning. Big Brother and I kind of had an agreement. They understood that rather than waking me up at 3 a.m, they could just wait till 8:30 or so the next morning, call me in. I'd already had my coffee at that point in time, a little bit more energetic and such. They could call me and I'd go in without any complaints whatsoever. So Big Brother left me alone in the middle of the night in exchange for me always being available first thing in the morning. So future Big Brother players, keep that in mind. It's nice to keep Big Brother happy. So there you go. Just a little insider scoop on that. And then that's it, guys. Finally, Derek gets his clothes put up. Everyone's in bed. And that's the end of the evening. Again, the biggest conversation, will he or won't he? Xavier, is he keeping noms the same, or does he lose his faith in Big D, switch over, let Azah make the boot to send Kyland out the door? Either way, I think Kyland is a target this week. I do think he's going home. So there you have it, guys. We do, I think, have the veto ceremony today. So hopefully by tomorrow morning, we'll have a little bit more information. We'll know who's going to be making this final decision. And we'll probably also have a whole lot of conversations about Kyland putting on that full court press to whoever will be making the conversation. So until then, y'all have a fantastic Monday. I will see y'all tomorrow morning. I do have tonight Cliff Notes Live, 8:00 Eastern, 7:00 Central on YouTube. Come out, ask me all the Big Brother questions you want. Until then, I will see y'all later, guys. SKD 143. Cheers, my friends. Bye.